We're here in Ghana, and we saw how God used the prophet to predict who's supposed to become the next president of Ghana. And the President Nana Akufo-Addo himself is aware how through the prophet prophesy him into the power. So now if the IGP comes and says that we should be very careful how we prophesy. Prophecy is not something you plan. Prophecy is not a planting. Prophecy is God giving a man his word to prophesy it. Prophecy is not a planting. If a prophecy is a planting, then we agree with what IGP is saying. But because prophecy is not a planting, prophecy is a word from God to the nation, to the kings, to president, and to the individuals. So when you stand on the pulpit and the Spirit of God comes upon you to release a word, sometimes you don't even know what you are saying until you finish. And somebody will tell you, this is what you said, this is what you said. Because it is the Spirit that comes upon you to use you as a man. By the time you know, it's like casting out devils. Sometimes you lay hands on somebody, the person will manifest. After the deliverance, you ask the person, what happened? The person cannot tell you what happened because the person didn't know what went on. The same as prophecy. There's a spirit of prophecy that comes upon people for them to, prophesy. So when you come out with such a release, it means that you are trying to put fear on the prophet. You are trying to control them. You are trying to limit them. And I don't think it's good for us and for the nation, because if we are not careful, we end up fighting God himself. So that is number one. Number two, he said when we prophesy such things, it brings fear and panic to the nation. There is no fear and panic that is more than what the parliamentarian did in the parliament. What the parliamentarian did, fighting in the parliament, cutting themselves with blade, CNN picked it, BBC picked it, all over the world. That one, nobody was arrested. If you see two people fighting on the street, policeman can arrest them. But why is that the parliamentarians who are supposed to enforce the law, they end up fighting instead of enforcing the law, they just end up fighting and nobody is arrested. But rather they want to arrest anybody who prophesy to individual or prophesy about death. To us, we feel like IGP is trying to, put fear on the prophet, put limit on the prophet. God has used the prophets for many, many years, to bring good things into the nation of Ghana, good things, very powerful things. So 2021, when it happens that now the police said any prophet who prophesied death about somebody or something, the person will be arrested. We feel like it's not fair to the prophets. So if they can withdraw this press conference by threatening the prophets, we will be glad and will be happy. Because what the parliamentarians did in the parliament is more disgraceful to the nation. It's more disgraceful to the nation. Because you see, when you mention somebody and you prophesy that as Mr. So and so, God has revealed to me that you are going to die or something, it is an individual affair. It is not a nation's affair. It's not a state affair. It is an individual affair. So it is the person who can choose to suit the prophet, take the prophet to court, or negotiate with the prophet and say, okay, if you said, God said, because Isaiah told King Hezekiah, God sent him to tell him he's going to die. The Lord told Isaiah, he said, go tell the king. In those days, if you go to the king's palace and you prophesy such a prophecy, you can be killed. Your head can be cut off. But Isaiah is a messenger, because in our parable, our father said, before you kill a messenger, make sure you kill the one who sent him. Before you kill a messenger, kill the one who sent the messenger. So if you want to kill the prophet, if you want to prosecute the prophet, what about God who sent the prophet? The question is that if you want to prosecute the prophet, put him in jail for 5 years. What about the God who sent the prophet? What are you going to do about that God? So before you kill the messenger, make sure you kill the one who sent him. Half a messenger is just a messenger. So we believe that the IGP actually is trying to bring law and order. His job is to enforce law and order. But when he goes to extreme, then it's becoming like intimidation, trying to suppress the gift and the ministry and the body of Christ. You know, even JJ's time, that was a military time. He never, military time, there were prophets who were prophesying. Now that is his MPP 10, that they say they are even building cathedral. Now that they want to intimidate the prophets. So we don't agree. Nigeria is bigger than Ghana 10 times. Nigerian population is over 200 million people. Their president is a Muslim. And their prophets are more than the prophets in Ghana. The prophecy they are giving is more dangerous. But there's no press release against them that if they say something, they can end up in jail for 5 years. Well, anybody that hears around Africa that IGP has brought such a release will say that this one is an persecution against the prophet. So I feel that if he can withdraw it, it will help us, because we feel strongly that in the history of Ghana, such a thing has never happened before. In the history of our country, from Kwame Nkrumah time up to now, it is the first time we are hearing such a thing. Though he's doing his job, he wants people to clap for him, he wants people to holler him, he wants people to sing a song that he's doing well. It is a good thing. But, you know, to go extreme, to us, I didn't know you guys, I will come and meet you here. I should have called my brother, Dr. Isaac Ozumempa, to join us. Because I spoke to him yesterday. And all of us are not happy. All of us are feeling that it is a pure threat to the work of the prophet. And I know some pastors are happy. I know some bishops are happy. But you see, the Bible says, and the king stretched forth his hand and killed James. And when he killed James, the church was so happy. They were so happy. And eventually, the king stretched his hand again and arrest Peter. Now they have to pray. So what is going on now? If the church did not step in and say something, after some time, the same IGP will come and say nobody should pray. When you pray and you shout, you can go to jail for 10 years. It will start small. It will start small. A time will come. And this is how it has started. It has started with a prophet. But if the men of God in this country, if the fathers of this land did not wake up and react against such things, a time will come, they themselves, there will be a law against them that nobody should even pray. When you pray and you shout, you'll be arrested. You see, this shouting has saved this country a lot. This prayer thing, going to Achimota, people, individual, praying for this nation is what has granted us access to peace. The peace we are enjoying in this land is the prayer we've been praying. So, once he has, They have sat down to plan and to bring this release. What I can also say to the prophets is that they should be wise. They should use wisdom. When God gives them a word for this 31st, they should know how to go about it. You know, they should know how to go about it. So I'll plead with all the prophets. All the prophets. I'm calling on the prophets from Aflao all the way to the end, Alibo. Wherever there is a prophet, once this press conference release is on now, you need to be very careful before it's too late for you. So my job here is to also call all the prophets and all the church, all the apostles, to be very careful how you prophesy before you end up in jail because of prophecy. Because of prophecy. When a man said, if you are not careful about your prophecy and you can end up in jail, it's taking me back to the days of Daniel. Daniel ended up in the lion's den because of prayer. Jeremiah ended up in prison because of prophecy. Isaiah died in prison because of prophecy. So it's coming back. So all of us should be very careful, and we should pray for this nation, and we should know how to go about the prophecies on 31st night. I know many people are happy. They want to make sure they silence the prophets. People are against the prophetic ministry. Meanwhile, it has saved many people. It has raised many people. It has prophetic word has directed people. Now people are big, people are great, including the sitting president, MPP government. It is prophetic word. My brother even prophesied and put his life online that if MPP did not win, they should come and burn his church and kill him. So when you come and say the same prophet who prophesy you into power, not to prophesy again, you are trying to scare them. But in any way, my job here is to talk to the prophets that they should be very careful for the release. Everybody should comport themselves, apply wisdom, process what God has given to you, and know how to go about it so that you don't offend the law. So we want to be good, law-abiding citizens, and that is it. So we are not happy with what has happened, because in the history of Ghana, such a thing has never happened before. From Kwame Nkrumah time, from JJ time, Buzia time, Papa Kufuor's time, Mahama's time, no IGP came and said prophets shouldn't prophesy and create panic and fear. I've never seen any prophecy that has created fear and panic more than what our parliamentarians did in the parliament. So this is what I have to say to our IGP. He's doing a good job. We are behind him. We support him for what he's doing to enforce the law. But when it comes to just the prophet not to, prophesy what God has given to them, that one too is a problem, because it is not a planting. It is God who gave him the word to prophesy. It's like Jonah. God sending Jonah to Nineveh. And Jonah said, you will not go. He end up, you know where Jonah end up. So that is how God operates. So before you kill any messenger, what do? Kill the one who sent the messenger. So if you want to do it with the prophet, you have to also deal with the God who sent them. Otherwise, you have not been fair to them. So that is what I have to say to the IGP. We are not happy, but nevertheless, we want to encourage all the prophets that they shouldn't become a victim. They shouldn't become a victim. In the days of Moses, there was a law against Moses alone in Egypt. When Jesus was born, there was another decree against all the baby boys who were born at that time. So at the end of the day, these kind of things, we have to pray. The prophet must rise up and pray, because it's not normal. It has never happened before in the history of a prophetic ministry in this country. So we want to encourage the prophet, and we want to wish everybody Merry Christmas. Hence the instruction of God. Instruction of God. This one you are asking, God specifically directed Isaiah to the house of King Hezekiah. He said, go tell him. There are instances you will stand on your pulpit from nowhere. God will ask you to say this. That one, you cannot tell God, I cannot do that. So it depends the instruction of God and the timing and how God wants to do whatever he intended to do. You see, so sometimes God can just open up anywhere, even in the public, in the market. God can ask you to say something. It happens in the life of Jeremiah, Daniel. They said nobody should do it in public, but God urged Daniel to open his window towards Jerusalem. And he started praying. And when they heard him praying,